Welcome to the AnzenGuard podcast, everybody. I'm Michael Reynolds, and today we're going deep into the world of scareware.
Oh, yeah. Scareware, it's spooky, it's scary, and unfortunately, it's really relevant to your online safety. I'm Laura Wilson.
And, speaking of spooky and scary, did you know that one of the earliest examples of scareware actually used a Halloween image?
Really?
Yeah, like imagine you're just browsing online and suddenly a pop-up appears with a ghost or a jack-o'-lantern warning you that your computer's infected.
Oh, gosh, that's creepy. I can see how that would really freak someone out.
Yeah, talk about a scary way to start your online experience.
It's actually a pretty clever tactic when you think about it. Scareware preys on our natural anxieties. It uses imagery and language that triggers our fight or flight response.
So it's like they're trying to bypass our rational mind and just get us to click on something without thinking.
Exactly. They want to catch you off guard.
So let's paint a picture for our listeners. What does this actually look like in real life?
Okay, so imagine you're just casually browsing the web, maybe checking your email or scrolling through social media, and suddenly, bam, this alarming pop-up appears out of nowhere.
And it's not just any pop-up, right?
Right. These pop-ups are designed to look like they're from a trusted source, like Microsoft or your antivirus software.
So they might use official logos, urgent warnings, or maybe even a fake progress bar that seems to be scanning your system.
Yeah, exactly. They really try to make it look convincing.
It's all a facade, of course.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it can be really easy to fall for it, especially if you're not familiar with how scareware works.
And that's where those sneaky close buttons come in. You think you're closing the pop-up and getting rid of the problem, but really you're just clicking on something that leads to even more trouble.
It's like a trap within a trap.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just pop-ups we have to worry about, right?
No, scareware can also spread through spam emails that are disguised as legitimate offers. Those emails that promise free software downloads or amazing deals that seem too good to be true.
Oh, yeah, I get those all the time.
Well, a lot of times they are too good to be true, and clicking on the links in those emails could expose you to scareware lurking on the other side.
So what's the #1 rule for avoiding scareware?
Don't click. Don't click on anything that looks suspicious, no matter how official it seems. If you have even the slightest doubt, close the pop-up or restart your browser. It's always better to err on the side of caution.
Great advice. Now, speaking of real-world examples, there was this fascinating case from 2010 that really illustrates how convincing scareware can be. Remember the Star Tribune website hacking incident?
Oh, yeah, that was a classic example of scareware in action.
So visitors to the Star Tribune website were suddenly hit with these pop-up ads that looked like they were from Best Western Hotels and even Windows support.
Wow, using those familiar names really makes people let their guard down.
Exactly. And the messages in these pop-ups were urging people to buy antivirus software to protect their computers. And sadly, a lot of people fell for it. They clicked on the ads thinking they were doing the right thing, and boom, infected with malware.
And not only that, but they were also scammed out of money, about $50 each, for this fake antivirus software, which probably contained even more malware.
Oh, man, that's adding insult to injury.
It really is. And the guy behind this whole scheme, Peter Isarovs, made a fortune off of it, somewhere between $150,000 to $250,000.
Wow. He ended up on the FBI's most wanted list for cyber criminals because of this.
Yeah, he did. It's a serious business, and these criminals are highly motivated, but thankfully he was eventually caught and pleaded guilty to wire fraud. But his story shows that scareware can target anyone, individuals browsing the web, large businesses, anyone.
And with so many people working from home these days, it's more important than ever to be aware of scareware and have those security measures in place.
Absolutely. Work from home security should definitely include education about these kinds of threats.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the classic examples, but scareware is always evolving. What are some of the newer threats that people should be aware of?
Well, one that comes to mind is Crixus Trojans. They've been targeting Windows PCs lately.
Crixus Trojans, what are those?
So they use scare tactics to trick users into downloading harmful software, and often they try to imitate the look and feel of legitimate Microsoft or Windows warnings.
Very sneaky.
And you know how people used to think that Macs were immune to malware? Well, Mac Defender and its many aliases proved that wrong.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Macs are just as vulnerable as any other operating system.
So Mac Defender, what was that all about?
Well, it also goes by names like McGuard, Fake McDef, Mac Protector, and Mac Security. And it really shattered that myth that Macs are somehow immune to these threats.
So whether you're on a PC or a Mac, you're a potential target.
That's right.
Okay, so with all these threats out there, it can feel a bit overwhelming. What can we do to protect ourselves?
Well, there are some practical steps you can take. First and foremost, Always carefully examine any pop-up that appears. Don't rush to click on anything, especially if it seems urgent or alarming. Take a moment to think critically about the message. Does it really make sense? Is it coming from a legitimate source?
So don't let those fear tactics get to you.
Exactly. And only download files and programs from websites, and be wary of third-party downloaders, torrent clients, and unofficial websites. Stick to the official sources.
Okay, so be picky about our downloads. Got it. What else?
Use tools like pop-up blockers and antivirus software. They can help filter out malicious content and protect your system. And make sure to keep your software updated. Updates often include security patches that address known vulnerabilities, making it harder for scareware to exploit your system.
Updates are essential. I know so many people who ignore those.
And here are a few things to avoid. Never rely on pop-ups to notify you about viruses. Legitimate antivirus programs don't use those kinds of scare tactics. If you get a pop-up warning about a virus, it's most likely a scam.
That's such a great point. A huge red flag.
Also be cautious with browser extensions. Only download extensions from trusted sources. Some extensions can be malicious and may actually deliver scareware.
So it's all about being vigilant, using common sense, and having the right tools in place to protect ourselves.
Right. Exactly. Awareness is key. The more you know about scareware and its tactics, the better equipped you'll be to avoid it.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to use our own instincts against us.
Exactly. And they're really good at it. I mean, think about it. When we see something alarming or threatening, our brains go into that fight or flight mode.
That adrenaline kicks in.
Right. And we're wired to react quickly in those situations, which means sometimes we don't think as clearly as we normally would.
So those fear tactics, they kind of short-circuit our rational thinking.
Precisely. Scareware exploits that instinctual response. It bombards us with urgent warnings, flashing red lights, threatening language, all designed to overwhelm our senses and make us act impulsively.
And I bet the design of those pop-ups themselves play a role too, right? I've seen some that look so official it's hard to tell they're fake.
Oh, absolutely. The visual design is a crucial part of the deception. They'll often use elements like official logos, familiar color schemes, and even technical-sounding jargon to make the pop-up seem more credible.
So it's like they're trying to mimic the look and feel of a legitimate warning.
Exactly.
Now, what about those fake close buttons? I've always wondered how they technically pull that off.
Well, sometimes they'll create a pop-up window that looks like it has a regular close button, but it's actually just an image of a button.
Oh, so when you click it, nothing happens.
Right. Or even worse, it takes you deeper into the scam.
Wow, that's sneaky.
Or sometimes they use what's called a transparent window trick.
A transparent window trick. What's that?
So they create a transparent layer over the entire screen,
Oh, I see.
making it seem like your only option is to interact with the pop-up.
So even if you try to click outside of the pop-up, you're still caught in their trap.
Exactly. It's all about limiting your options and forcing you to engage with their malicious content.
It's incredible how much thought and effort goes into tricking people.
Yeah, they're very creative, unfortunately.
So we've talked about the psychology, we've talked about the design, the technical tricks, but I'm curious, how does scareware actually infect a system? Like what happens after you click on one of those malicious links or buttons?
Well, it varies depending on the specific type of scareware, but in general, clicking on that malicious element usually triggers a download.
Okay.
This could be a fake antivirus program, a Trojan horse, or some other form of malware disguised as a legitimate file.
And once that malware is downloaded, it can really wreak havoc on your system.
Yeah, that's right. It can steal your personal information like passwords and credit card numbers, spy on your online activity, or even give the attacker remote control of your computer. The possibilities are pretty scary.
It really highlights the importance of those preventative measures we talked about earlier. Being cautious about downloads, keeping your software updated.
Absolutely. Prevention is always the best defense. But even if you're super careful, there's always a chance you might encounter scareware. That's why it's so important to know what to look for and how to react if you do see something suspicious.
So let's circle back to those specific examples we mentioned earlier. We talked about Crixos Trojans targeting Windows PCs. Can you tell us a bit more about how they work?
Sure. Crixus is particularly sneaky because it often disguises itself as a fake blue screen of death error message.
Oh, you mean that dreaded blue screen that Windows users sometimes see when their system crashes?
Yeah, exactly. That one Crixus takes advantage of that fear, by mimicking that blue screen and displaying a fake error message, claiming that your computer has been infected with a virus.
And then that fake message probably includes instructions on how to fix the problem.
Right, exactly. They'll often provide a phone number or a website to visit, claiming that you need to contact their tech support to resolve the issue.
Which, of course, is just a front for their scam.
Exactly.
It's incredible how they exploit those moments of panic and vulnerability.
It really is. And it's not just Windows users who need to be aware. We talked about Mac Defender earlier. Can you remind us how that one operates and the impact it had?
So Mac Defender, also known by a bunch of other names like McGuard and Mac Security, is a perfect example of how scareware can target any operating system. It typically spreads through compromised websites or malicious ads.
Right, and like Crixos, it relies on fake error messages and warnings to scare users into downloading their bogus software. They might tell you that your Mac has been infected with a virus or that your system is at risk of a security breach.
And I bet they make it sound super urgent, just like with Crixos.
Oh, absolutely. They want you to act quickly without thinking things through.
So whether you're on a PC or a Mac, the tactics are very similar: create fear, exploit vulnerability, and trick you into downloading their malicious software.
That's right. It's a formula that's worked for them for years, unfortunately. But the more we understand these tactics, the better equipped we are to protect ourselves.
Well said. And I think that's a great place to wrap up this part of our deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, from the psychology of scareware to the technical tricks they use to infect systems. Yeah, it really makes you wonder what's next. Like what kind of crazy schemes will they come up with in the future?
Right. It's a little unsettling, but as technology changes, so will the methods of these scammers. They have to adapt to stay ahead of the game.
So what do you think is next? Like, what's the next evolution of scareware?
Well, who knows, but maybe we'll see scareware leveraging artificial intelligence, to create even more personalized and convincing attacks.
AI-powered scareware.
That's a scary thought.
It is. Or imagine scareware that uses virtual or augmented reality to create these really immersive and realistic threats.
Yeah.
Almost like blurring the lines between the digital world and reality.
Yeah, it's like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Exactly. But as wild as those ideas might sound, they're not completely out of the realm of possibility.
So it sounds like we really need to be prepared for anything. Yeah, I think the best defense against scareware, both now and in the future, is a healthy dose of skepticism and a commitment to staying informed.
So don't just blindly trust everything you see online.
Right, exactly. Don't be afraid to question things if something seems off. Trust your gut and do your research. There are plenty of resources available to help you verify the legitimacy of messages, websites, and software.
And remember, if you ever encounter scareware, don't panic. Take a deep breath, close the pop-up, and if you're not sure, reach out to a trusted tech support professional for guidance.
All great advice. And remember, you're not alone in this fight against scareware. There are a lot of individuals, organizations, and security companies working hard to protect users and combat these threats.
Well, this has been a really eye-opening deep dive into the world of scareware. I feel like I've learned a lot.
Me too. It's been great chatting with you about this.
Yeah, it has. And speaking of chatting, that's it for this episode of the AnzenGuard podcast. I'm Michael Reynolds.
And I'm Laura Wilson.
Thanks for joining us. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the world of cybersecurity. And if you enjoy this episode, please leave us a comment and share it with your friends and family. The more people we can educate about scareware, the better.
Stay safe out there, everyone.